I'm Thea. I am attempting to do the 2024 summer vinyl tag. This was thought up by Dillon from Noble Records. I don't know Dillon personally, but he always seems like such a nice person, and I always enjoy watching his videos. He owns his own record store. So this is a great inspiration for me to do this. It's always a lot of fun to go through your records and see if you could answer any of the challenged questions. And so I'm going to make that attempt and hope you enjoy it. The first question that Dillon posed was, show an album or a song with summer in the title. Now, what I have here, Don Henley, Boys of Summer. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the Eagles and they don't like Don Henley. But this song reminds me of 1985. The video is, right now I could see it in my head. It's a black and white, a little boy playing the drums. And I will always love the song, and it'll remind me of my teenage years. So, Boys of Summer, Don Henley. The second one was, show us your latest heavy pull. So, I think what he meant by heavy pull was something you've been wanting for a long time, that you went the extra mile to get. Maybe you spent a lot of money because it's been a goal of yours to get it. Well, this album I didn't spend a lot of money on, but it's actually not a difficult album to get. There's so many reissues and it's a common record, but for some reason I have not been able to find it. And that is Pink Floyd's Metal. Now, this album was torturing me because it was missing. I needed the album before Dark Side of the Moon. This is a transition album, and I didn't have it, and it was bothering me that I didn't have it, because now I feel more complete. This is the inner sleeve. Everybody knows Echoes, which is what this album is probably most famous for. I didn't spend a whole lot of money on it. I didn't want to get the reissue. I read that the reissues sounded great, but the European reissues claim to be from the original analog, and it always turns out that the American pressings are, but the European pressings aren't, and it just annoys me that they put it on the hype sticker and it's complete misinformation. So I've always been trying to find a decent older copy, an earlier copy. It doesn't have to be a first copy, and I finally got it. And I'm also happy that I have this gatefold, which I really like this picture of the band. Choose a whack-a-mole album. So I have the records behind me. I'm just going to grab something. See what this is. The Clash Combat Rock. This particular one is a reissue from 2022 European. You'll notice we have the Clash original sticker from the American issues. This, we had an extra one, and I just had to put it back on there because it looked naked without it. So I'm happy to have that. So that's my rock. Everybody knows about combat rock, so I don't need to say much more. Show an album with an animal on the cover. This is, I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to take the plastic off. This is Alice in Chains. The dog on the cover. Now, this particular copy is an unofficial copy. I remember when this album came out originally, and I purchased it on CD originally. And what we did was we recreated the original CD packaging, because I always loved, there was two different types. There was one with yellow plastic over this picture, and then there was another with purple plastic over this picture. And the one I had was the purple plastic, so I fitted this plastic, and if it goes over the dog's eyes glow. Now, you could see clearly that it is an unofficial because things are sort of cut off and there's some pictures missing. But the sound is pretty phenomenal. For an unofficial release, it sounds great. So I'm happy with it. I think whoever did it did a great job. They even recreated the original labels. And like I said, it's a really, whoever put this together, they did it with love, because this is, I'm very happy to have this unofficial piece, because if you try to get the original, I'm sure it's completely unaffordable. And the thing is, with Alice in Chains, when they did their albums originally, everything was digital. So the recreation on digital to digital sounds pretty damn good, as opposed to analog and then trying to rip it, transfer it to digital, and then rip it to vinyl, and it just sounds like a mess, and you can hear it normally when you have bootlegs and unofficial. I want to show you the inside of that. That's a nice touch too. I don't know if you could see it. It's red inside. So yeah, we had recreated the original packaging from the CD, which was our own DIY stuff, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I love this. Show an album with a great story. Okay. This is a personal story. The B-52s. Now, it's not this particular record in my hand that I'm talking about. What I'm thinking about is one from when it was originally released in 1978. This is an original release, I believe. Yeah, this is a Winchester pressing from 1979. I think the one we would have had was whatever year that came out. I think it was 78. What makes this interesting, and it's an influential album for me, my brother, back in 1978, saw the B-52s out on Long Island, and he came back so excited, laughing hysterically, said he'd never seen a band like them, that they're their best live band ever, and he was joyous about it, and it was something that always stuck with me. And he just thought it was hilarious, because at this point in the mid to late 70s, new wave was a very new thing. So since their song that was known and played on the radio was Rock Lobster, he thought it was hilarious that they were a new wave band. So I had his copy for many, many years, and it was lost, so I replaced it with another copy. And I don't know if that's an interesting story to you, but it has fond memories for me. And it's a great inspiration for all my musical tastes. Show an album that people might be surprised to find in your collection. Now, most of my stuff is rock and roll. So what I'm going to show you is the best of Paul Robeson. I saw this in a local store and got it for almost nothing. But Paul Robeson was an amazing man, and I couldn't resist. I felt like I should have him in my collection as a part of history. He was a professional football player. He was a lawyer. He was a human rights activist. He performed on Broadway and then on the West End in London. Baritone vocals, he's known for Old Man River, which is Showboat. That song is on here, but the other songs on here, there's so many very sweet, lovely songs. A lot about just loving being a parent and loving your children. It's a very emotional album. I really enjoy it. I'm glad I have it. And I think he's an important person in history that we should never forget. But he doesn't go along with all my other records, so that's why people would be surprised that I have him. Also, I have a note here. As a social justice activist, he considered himself a citizen of the world. And that's what he called himself. Cheap Heat. Okay, I'm going to show you two. This one, Suzi Quatro. This is a great album. This is a great rock and roll album. And there's not a bad song on here. So if you see it, pick it up. You can't go wrong. Beginning of glam and punk and all that stuff in the mid-70s. She was also on Happy Days. She was Leather Tuscadero, Pinkies, Pinky's baby sister, I think. And that's talking about flashbacks. 48 Crash. Can to Can. This is a fun, great album, and it's cheap. I think I got it for like €7 or something, and it's, in my opinion, worth a lot more. Another album, which I think is worth a lot more. This is LaBelle Nightbirds. I may have showed this in the other video. This medium price is like €5, €6, $6. It's not that expensive. The music and the talent on this album is worth way more than the median price on Discogs. If you see it, pick it up. It's a party. It's so much fun. You know the songs on here. At least you know Lady Marmalade. But yeah, this is a great album worth a lot more than what you see online. Show a 45 or an alternative vinyl format. 78 RPM is what I'm going to show you. So this is a 78 10-inch. This is Danny Boy by Nelson Eddy. It's a 10-inch record that plays 78 rounds per minute. Here's the cover, which I think is really cool. I think it's from the 1950s. This album belonged to my husband TJ's aunt. So we sort of inherited it. And I love old records. I think they're great. Show a favorite documentary or biopic for a band. There's a bunch. A whole lot. I mean, off the top of my head, I think Gimme Shelter, the Myers Brothers, about the Rolling Stones Altamont concert, Dig, which is Brian Jonestown Massacre versus Dandy Warhols, The Kids Are All Right, The Who. It's sort of like a bunch of their performances from television and live put together on a movie screen. There are so many great biopics. Let It Be. I had a bootleg of that for many, many years until I think just recently they made like a 5-hour version and they cleaned it up and now we got to know the rest of the story. But the one I'm going to show right now is The Story of the Ramones, End of the Century. I saw this when it came out and I hadn't realized at that time the drama in the band and how Joey and Johnny were at odds with each other. And what the KKK took my baby away meant, I knew it was a joke kind of song, but I didn't know the serious underlying meaning behind it. So that is all explained on here. This is a step back in time in the 1970s, New York, CBGBs. And this is a great biopic. Another great biopic you can't get really anymore. It was out for a split second, and that was the MC5, A True Testimonial. I saw that in the theaters too. I actually had a physical copy of it for a moment. There was somebody I knew who was a huge fan of the MC5. I was moving, so I gave it to them. And now you can't get it or see it anywhere. So hopefully one day they will release it because that was phenomenal too. I don't have that anymore. Okay. Most trashed record in your collection. This record was given to me for free. Electric Ladyland. This is an original American pressing. It's completely trashed and it's missing one of the discs. But I want to show you. It's beat to death. Somebody had a lot of parties with this record. Let me show you the inner sleeve. This is really cool. But I wanted to keep this because this is an American pressing. This is an original American pressing. It's very staticky sounding. It's hard to listen to. Right now, this is side A and side D. So I'm missing side B and C. So I had to replace it. I couldn't get rid of this because it's an original. So I can compare it to another copy that I got, which is this version. And this is a German version from 1970. And there are differences. First of all, this is the cover. And this is the inner. This one you can hear better because it's not as beat up. But in spite of the other record being so beat up, the sound is more full. It's more dynamic. So I won't let go of the American version. Show us a local band. I'm in Cork right now, so I'm going to show you 2 local bands really quick. And these are 2 Cork bands. One is called, this is an EP called The Love Buzz. Here Comes the Sun. The Scum, excuse me. Here Comes the Scum. And this was released in 2021. They're more like a alternative, like sort of psych, but alternative rock band. They were formed in like 2017, and this is from a couple years ago. And another one is called The Sultans of Ping. If you've seen Moonboy, you may know the theme song to it is Where's Me Jumper? Well, that's these guys right here. Casual Sex in the Cineplex is the title. This front photograph was taken at the movie theater in Cork City that no longer exists. It was torn down. It was the Capitol. And I think in its place is like a sports store and a home store. But that was definitely a Cork City band. Show an album from a faraway land. Well, this is Blind Faith. What makes this an album from a faraway land is where it was pressed. This is a Taiwanese album. This album was pressed specifically for American soldiers who didn't want to spend the export prices for American records. So they sort of bootlegged it and sold it to the soldiers for cheap. So this would be like a $2 record, specifically created for the soldiers. Now what they did was, if I can pull it out, yeah, this is very thin. And they just photocopied the American cover and then put their own pressing of the record. And I have to say, I listened to it. I had a German pressing of this album with a different cover. And the German version was an official version. This is not. This sounds better than the German version, even though it's unofficial. It sounds great, actually. I enjoy listening to it all the time. And the fact that it has that kind of history. I love that. Okay, so show a soundtrack. This is probably my favorite soundtrack of all time for a movie, and it's The Crow. Now, I had this on CD when it first came out. This had not been released on record until a record store day. What year is this? I can't see. Oh, 2019. And when I saw that Record Store Day was releasing this on vinyl, I was excited. There was an unofficial copy for sale for a little bit of this album. And what it did was, whoever created that also cared about the movie and the music, because they had a really lovely packaging. The thing is that Jane Seabury, It Can't Rain All the Time, that song was dropped on the bootleg. So this was the first official on vinyl where you heard all the songs. And let's see. And the last side, I don't know if you can see it, but there's an etching of a crow. This has wonderful sound. It's a high quality record. One of my favorite albums anyway. It has The Cure. It has Nine Inch Nails doing a Joy Division song. It has Henry Rollins. It has Jesus and Mary Chains. The Violent Femmes. It has, I can't put this back. It has a lot of great songs on here. I never get sick of it. There's also a Poison Idea song covered. Which one? Oh, Pantera does The Badge. So that's a great song. Show us your highest recommendation. Now that was a difficult one because I would think of a great album and then I would think of another great album and I couldn't make up my mind. So I just chose this one because this is an album that's perennial in its fantasticness. This is Jethro Tull Aqualung. This is a 1980s, I think, German reissue. The original American one was a much darker cover. This is textured. This one, it's sort of edited. It's not like the American version or even the British version. It's a little bit shorter, but it still sounds great. And the entire album, from beginning to end, is a fantastic album. Never get sick of it. And I think everyone, if you listen to it objectively, you too would completely agree. It's an album that I don't think anyone should think is a bad album. Highest on your want list. All right, well, I don't have it, so obviously I can't show you anything. But highest on my want list is Mad Season Above. Now, that was an album I used to have. I remember when it first came out, it was the 90s. I was in Greenwich Village, and I went to the record store right by 6th Avenue, and I heard what I thought was Alice in Chains, and it wasn't. It was the store clerk told me it was Mad Season. This is something else. So I was like, great, I'll buy it, because he said, oh, it's members of the Screaming Trees and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains. And I was like, sure, I'll buy it. But they didn't have it on CD. And at the time, I didn't have a record player. They only had it on import vinyl. And what I wound up doing was buying it on the vinyl, even though I couldn't play it. And I promised that I would go back and get the CD. So about a month or so later, I actually went back and got the CD, and I still have the CD. The record that I had when we moved to Ireland, TJ, my husband, gave up a lot of records that meant a lot to him, so I felt guilty about that. So I thought, well, I should give up something that's meaningful to me too. So I did. I gave up that album. And I thought, oh, I'll get another issue one day. And then since then, I've watched the prices raise and raise and raise to 400, 500, 600, crazy amounts. I was like, I just can't believe how expensive that album is. Now, they had reissued it, and I actually had to reissue twice. The reissue is different. The original cover is Lane Staley's artwork. It's a man and a woman in a position where they're intimate. And I think the artwork has a lot to do with the lyrics and the song and the feeling of the album. And the artwork is important. So when it came to the reissue, it's mostly black with a tiny little picture of the artwork. So that was a little disappointing. But the lacquer cut was Kevin Gray, I think? An amazing sound. The problem was I gave it up because it wasn't the same order. Track listing was different, and it annoyed me every time. So I got rid of it because it did annoy me. It wasn't the same album because they mixed it up. Now I'm not saying you shouldn't get it if you see it. It sounds amazing. The songs are still great, and I think they have 4 or 5 extra songs, bonus songs. And the best bonus song is a cover of a John Lennon song that I think Mad Season did for a movie that I'd never seen. It was on a soundtrack for some movie, and it was I Don't Want to Be a Soldier. And I actually think that the Mad Season version of that song is better than John Lennon's. So for that alone, it's worth having that album. It's just that every time I listen to it, I want it to be in the order that I was familiar with. Maybe I'll buy it again one day, the reissue. But there's no way I'm spending $800 or whatever crazy amount it is for the original that I used to have. Give a channel a shout out. And the reason why I finally decided to do this, I was procrastinating, then I thought, oh, it's too late, the summer's almost over, I shouldn't even try, it's a waste of, nobody's going to pay attention, nobody's going to care. It's yesterday. Everybody did theirs about a month and a half ago. It'd be silly to do one now, right when we're on the cusp of autumn. And then I saw a gentleman named Embarrassment of Riches, and he did his recently, and he inspired me to be like, well, if he can do it late, I can do it late too. So here's my shout out to Embarrassment of Riches. I always enjoy his stuff. I think the first video I saw that he had done was about Discogs Impossible, the albums he'd love to have, but he's not spending an arm and a leg for it. I think he's out of Pennsylvania. He's a big Smiths fan. He also likes hip-hop too, but he's mostly alternative rock and hip-hop and the Smiths. So I always enjoy, I think he's pretty humorous. I'm nowhere near as humorous as he is. He's very humorous and he's very entertaining, so shout out to him. The silver lining in the vinyl community. Silver lining is I always learn things from other people. Everybody has insights and knowledge that they share. Maybe whatever their favorite album is, they'll hold up and they'll give a background of why it's so important to them and what the band was about and how important they are to music. And I would be like, okay, I'm going to check them out. I learn so much from the vinyl community all the time. And that's probably the greatest silver lining. It's like it inspires you to check out your records. It inspires you to check out things maybe you would have never tried before. But because of the praise of other people, it may be something that you've missed out on your entire life, and now you have it, and you can enjoy it. Where before maybe you wouldn't have even given it a chance. A steal deal. Steal of a deal. Now, I was in a local record store, and they had a €5 bin, and they had this. It has somebody named Mark Cagney written on it, LP, and it says Romantics. So I looked inside and saw that it was a white label test pressing. And I've never had a white label test pressing, so this is my first, and I'm sure, even though I only spent €5 for it, if it's a test pressing, it's worth more than that. So in that sense, it's a bargain. Regardless of what people would pay for it, the sound, because it's a test pressing, the sound is amazing. It has a different master than the regular version that you see. This is Tim Tom. Tim Young is a British, I think, master. We did this ourselves. We created a listing so we knew what was on here because it's not written anywhere. And the black and the white we did ourselves just to be creative. But when I picked it up, it was just the white and the white. And if it wasn't for the LP Romantics, I wouldn't have known what it was. So to me, that's a bargain. For €5, very happy to have. It sounds great. And it's a great album anyway. I pick it up anyway. Before the thing about records that don't cost too much, but they're worth more than what the median price is on Discogs, that's another one of those. If you see that, whether it's the regular one or whatever, pick it up because it's another fun party album. Power pop, everything is great on it. So pick it up either way. So that applies to 2 questions, actually. And then the last one is show a promo. This I just got recently along with that Pink Floyd album. This is Pete Townsend, Empty Glass. Now it's a beat up. You can see the wear on it. We cleaned it up as best as we can. It didn't really have a whole lot of information when I bought it, other than it had writing on it and it was a little worn. And it was only like €7. So I was like, all right, I love this album. You know, Pete Townsend, you can't go wrong. And this is probably his best album. It's sort of, I think I've read somewhere that people consider it the Lost Who album that never was. And I think I read something where it said to the effect of Roger Daltrey was annoyed because the Who album that came out after that was Face Dances, which is objectively not a good album. And Roger Daltrey was upset because Pete Townsend put all his greatest songs on his solo album instead of giving it to the Who. So This is a great album. Now, I didn't realize when I ordered it, because it didn't say anywhere that it was a promo. I just thought it was a beat up copy of a great album. But then I noticed it had these numbers on here, and then it has numbers stamped right here. I don't know if you could see that. And I was just like, that's very odd. Why does it have numbers everywhere? And I thought, well, maybe it belonged to a record, a radio station. Maybe, and then I realized maybe it's a promo if it was to a record, a radio station. And I opened it up and I looked, and it's a white label. Now, I know that not all white labels mean promo, but I think this is a promo. And it's got a date on here and a signature. And it also has, in the halo, a date and a signature. Just out of curiosity, I looked at that and I was thinking, could that be autographed by Pete Townsend by any chance? And I looked it up. Now, Pete Townsend has a bunch of autographs that you see that are varying. They're not all exactly alike. But the one thing that's consistent in his signature is that he has a hook, which is right here. So I'm guessing, I'm not 100% sure, but I think this possibly is autographed by Pete Townsend. It was given to an Italian radio station, and somehow I got it for very cheap. This is what I think it is. If anybody knows any better, you can let me know. Say, no, that's just the person who owned it signed it. That's normally what it is. Somebody will date and sign their own records because they don't want it to get lost at parties. But my theory is, because it looks a lot like Pete Townsend's scribble, it just might be Pete Townsend. So again, complete surprise, didn't expect it. I suspect that's exactly what it is, and if it is, I'm thrilled. If not, I'm still thrilled because it's a great album. So that is it. I rambled on. I hope you found that interesting. And this is my second tag. The other one was a soul tag. So maybe in the fall I'll be able to do another tag if I can actually answer the questions and have something to follow up in my collection to show. So everybody enjoy the last week of summer, and thank you to everyone who's watching. Listen to more music. Bye. Hello again, this is Thea with a postscript. I realized after I had filmed everything that I completely skipped over question 10, which was box set. So very quickly, I'm going to go over the box set that I neglected to talk about before. This particular box set means a lot to me. 2019 for my birthday, the soundtrack to Watchmen, the TV series from HBO, Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor did the soundtrack for it. It's instrumentals, it's atmospheric, it gives you ambiance from the 1940s. It's, if anybody's familiar with the graphic novel, it's about superheroes gone awry, and it takes place in the 40s up until recent times. It goes through Vietnam and everything like that. Well, this particular TV show is post-apocalypse of the original graphic novel. So it has some of the same characters and new characters and how they're all connected. And the soundtrack is phenomenal. I fell in love with it the second I heard it, and I asked TJ if he can get it for me for my birthday, and he did. And what we wound up doing was getting all 3 volumes, because it's broken down into 3 volumes. And there is no box set for this soundtrack, so we created our own. We're very DIY in this household. So we created our own, and it's a birthday present for me at the time, so I was thrilled to get it. And we did it together, so this is the box that we created. This is the back. It breaks down what's on each record. This is what it is on the inside. It fits 3 records. And I'll just quickly show you the records. This is volume 1. What they do is they create a whole universe into this. So they have alternate universe bands, situations. If you look at any of the notations, none of it is real. It's all fictional. Even on Discogs, you'll see all the information on there is fictional because they completely made it up. So this is volume 1. That's Rorschach. Volume 2 is The American Hero Story. A little X-rated right there. I'm not going to show it too quick much. And then the last one, which is they did their fictional 9 Inch Nails. It's The 9 Inch Nails is on the 3rd one. The only thing negative about this is I wish the quality was better. And since we ordered it all the way from the United States, one of these days I'm going to have to replace some of these because they're very noisy. The pressings are very noisy. And which is unfortunate because this is quiet and you want to listen to it and get immersed into it. So when you hear crackles, I had it professionally cleaned like 4 times. It's my only disappointment, but maybe I'll get replacement discs so I can actually pretty much enjoy it, or I'll just have to get the CD. Another thing we do is we made some of our own inserts, which represented the television show characters and also the original graphic novel. And there's inserts that come with this, and just wanted to show you really quickly our DIY box set for Watchmen. The records are all official. The box itself is something we made ourselves. So thank you for your time, and once again, enjoy music, enjoy your day, enjoy the rest of the summer.